Today, we're going to look at some of the cheap and easy things you can do to make a new bike or even an old bike a little bit more your own. And this is applicable to any kind of mountain bike, but today we'll be using my new Norco Bigfoot 2 because it's still very stock and just doesn't fit me quite right. First, I'm going to adjust the seat post down so that my dropper can get a little lower. That means removing this rear reflector, which I won't be needing out on the trails anyway. Then, it's a simple matter of loosening the seat post clamp and sliding the seat post down. When you tighten it back down, be sure to torque it to spec. It's also important to forget to adjust the focus on your camera. Test your dropper just to be sure that everything is working. Next up, let's fix that stock cockpit. I'm going to start by putting a bungee cord onto the bike so that when I remove the handlebars and stem, the fork doesn't fall out of the headset. Loosen and remove the grips so that you can get the brakes, shifter, and dropper lever off. It probably makes sense to loosen and remove all of those components at this stage too, although I didn't do it until later. If you're just replacing the handlebars, you'll need to remove them from the stem. In my case, I'm going to be replacing the stem too, so this step wasn't strictly necessary, but I figured I'd demonstrate it. To remove the stem, loosen the bolts on the back, take out the top cap and any spacers above the stem, and then slide the stem up off of the fork. Here's what we'll be replacing the stock stuff with: a PNW Components range bar, range stem, and loam grips. I chose PNW Components because these parts are all pretty affordable and I really like how they look. The range stem also has a mount that seems ideal for fat biking since I'll need to use my handlebar light a lot for night rides. Slide the new stem on, replace the top cap and spacer, and screw it all into place. For now, I'm using a regular hex wrench because I'm not tightening anything down yet. Once everything's in place and properly aligned, then I'll tighten it all down with the torque wrench. Insert the new bars into the stem and tighten the screws just enough to hold it in place, making sure the markings on the bar align with the openings in the stem. Once you're sure it's properly aligned, torque the screws to spec. Take the removed shifter, dropper lever, and brakes and slide them onto the new bar. Slide the grips all the way onto the new bar, twist to make sure they're right side up, and then tighten them to spec. You can do your best to get a feel for the right placement for your shifter, brakes, and dropper, and then tighten them down. Probably you'll need to do a test ride or two and then make adjustments over time based on how it feels in the real world. Since this stem has an optional GoPro/light mount, let's mount the light. The sun goes down well before work ends in winter, so I'll be doing a fair amount of night riding. I really like that this mount uses a hex wrench rather than the Phillips head most GoPro mounts use. That'll make it much easier to adjust on the fly using a multi-tool. All that's left to do is strap on the battery and check to make sure it's working. Oh, and of course, no bike personalization is complete without color-matching valve stem caps. This is definitely the most satisfying bike upgrade that you can make for like $3. Take a moment to admire your handiwork, and don't forget to torque down any bolts you might have left loose while you were adjusting things. You'll want to take a few quick test rides somewhere close to your tools so that you can quickly come back and adjust. But let's just skip to the fun part.
Out in the woods, testing out the new bars and grips and everything. Alright, so far, feeling pretty good. I think I need to move the dropper handle a tiny bit back to the left, but other than that, feeling great. Keep going.
I've done a bit of fat bike grooming and ridden a lot on the quarantine trail that we built right outside my house, but this was actually my first time getting this bike out onto real trails at Bradbury. And I have to say, while I still think riding my Jeffsy on dirt is more fun, this is pretty enjoyable. It was really nice to get back out on real trails. And although I know the trails at Bradbury very well, the snow changes them all, which is cool. It's like I'm getting to discover a whole new trail system all over again. If you like this video, now would be a great time to hit like and subscribe, because next week I'll be sharing some of the most important lessons I've learned from my first year of riding a mountain bike. If you're a beginner, I'm hoping that'll be really helpful, and if you're an experienced rider, I'm hoping you'll be there to tell me what I might have gotten wrong. Either way, I hope you can get outside and ride, and I'll see you next week.